Good morning all and welcome. Thank you for being here. This is the Cincinnati State Bachelor of Applied Science Land Surveying team that we have here. We're part of the 2022 Land Surveying Capstone with Cincinnati State. We'll get right into the introductions. I am McAllister Keeley. I have been in the surveying field now for 3 years. I currently work for Choice One Engineering out of Southwest Ohio, Loveland specifically.
My name is Derek Davidson. I've been surveying for 30 years. I graduated from Cincinnati Technical College in 1992. Jim was my first professor, actually, in 1992. Sorry, Jim.
Sorry.
I've been working for McCarty Associates out of Hillsborough, Ohio. That's in Highland County. It's kind of in between Cincinnati and Chillicothe for 30 years. I co-opted with them when I was at Cincinnati State, and I worked at Emerson. All my kids are in college or out of college, so I decided to come back and get my bachelor's now that we have it. So that's just.
My name is Joseph Ernst. I've been in the surveying field for the past 3 years, and I recently accepted a position at Horacio Engineering in Greendale, Indiana.
I'm Felix Grobman. I've been surveying for 2 to 3 years, somewhere in there. I also work at Rezo Engineering as well in Madison, Indiana.
I'm Jessica Lytle. I've been surveying about 3 years, and I also work at Rezo. Some of them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Levi Exline from Jackson, Ohio. Work for Exline Surveying. Been there for full-time for 3 years. Seems like we all have the same work experience. Yeah.
My name is Brian Favors from Cincinnati, Ohio. Been in surveying for 3 years before I started working in the field. I've been in the field for 6 months now. Been an engineer in Dayton, Ohio.
My name's Gunnar Sig. I work at Sig Surveying for my dad, and I've been working for probably about 8 years full time. Been really working since I was able to walk. But yeah, I live in Brookville, Indiana, and we work there mostly.
I'm Jeff Kraus. Have a little less than a year of survey experience. I'm not currently in the field. I'm currently bartending. Yeah. Way more fun.
Okay, moving on. Capstone goals.
Capstone goals. The goal of this project was to establish the boundary and resolve all of the adjoiners. There was some confusion as to who owned particularly which parcels. We also wanted to establish the locations of the graves, both marked and unmarked, so that's why the ground penetrating radar came in. We found the pins of the previous surveyor, and I believe we accomplished pretty much everything. We also provided topographical data.
So meeting the client, we met with Lisa on January 21st when we started this class, and she explained to us basically what the church's goals were with the survey and what our responsibilities were with what they wanted. So basically, she wanted us to find the boundary of the whole church and do gather data on the gravesite. That's the older part right there.
So this is our GIS that we gathered. No, this is the history. My bad.
No. History of Bone Baptist Church. The cemetery.
Okay. So as we were gathering all the different information, it just kept coming out of the woodwork. Lisa was doing a lot of scouting for us and talking with a lot of members and a lot of neighbors to really find out who owned what and we started with the GIS and what they provided us, and some of it wasn't correct, but we went ahead and we kept digging, and I thought it'd be interesting if I shared the different pieces and who they came from and when they had come from. So I simplified this drawing so that I could show you the different parts. So the original part, right across here, so this is where the current building is. So that was the original piece in 1843. And so that came together with John Wallace and the different trustees, and the deed had James Watkins, Robert Huey, Samuel Mason, John Johnson, Jacob Hardesty. And you'll see their headstones and the different family names out in that older section. So that was that original piece. And then in 1873, they gained this piece up here along the road and added that. And that was given by Erastus, probably butchering that, and Lisa Garrison. And so you'll find Garrison names within the cemetery as well. And so here we had 7 acres, and then here we have the 2 1/4 that was given. And then next came this piece right here, this little one, for that next edition of the headstone area. And that was given in 1888 by G.W. and Sally Huey. So there's one big name in the cemetery. And then this large section here, 4 acres, that was given in 1905 by James Henry. And the last piece that we've come together with was given by Norman and Martha Adair, and that was given in, it was 1995, yeah, 1995. So we've come together with just over 18 acres with those pieces. And so those are the pieces that we found as far as various deeds and through surveys. Edwin Kirkpatrick helped us with some of that stuff. And there were also a couple other pieces, but the one was the 10 acres that's up the road, and they had sold that off. I guess they didn't need that, and that was written in the will of if they don't need it, then go ahead and sell it off. And then there was another piece that was listed as a 1/2 acre, but it didn't say anything of where it was. So that could have been anywhere. So we were not sure about that. So I thought that would be interesting, the history of the different people that assembled the property.
Okay, up next, boundary research.
So with all surveys, you kind of start with a GIS layout to try to get the most recent deeds. That's what this is a picture of. So we, of course, all GIS is just a pretty picture. It's just to kind of help you figure it out. So you gotta go to the courthouse and get the deeds, of course. Every courthouse is a little bit different. Luckily, a lot of them all have nice people there willing to help you out. Just kind of show you where they have all their records. So, I can't remember her name, but she helped us out there. A couple of them actually did. In Kentucky, Boone County, Kentucky, they have a group system which puts all their, I guess, properties into kind of groups. Like in Indiana, we have sections. In section corners, that's how we kind of group them up, but they set up their own group, which they put their group into 2062. And then, so going to the courthouse, we started off by just collecting all these deeds and kind of tracing those back into seeing what matches, what mismatches, and found a bunch of stuff. A lot of it doesn't mean anything, a lot of it means a lot, and some of it we don't know. So, yeah, of course, this is just a pretty picture. A lot of these lines actually don't match up with what we have found. Well, you'll see that later on. But yeah, that's where we kind of started off with the GIS, then goes courthouse, and then, next slide, please. And then we start on our geographic abstract, graphical abstract. And we start kind of laying it out in Civil 3D. That's what these two pictures are. These are just deeds put in, trying to make them all work together. So obviously it's a mess, confusing. The big one that helped us out was a survey by Edwin Kirkpatrick's. He, back in 91, I think it was, yeah, 91, he did a survey that kind of went around like that, then up to the creek, up that way and around the road. So that kind of helped us at least have a better idea of what they are, because the original deed for the church, it shows just this piece here, and this piece here, going down like that, and we kind of lost a little bit of that. So that kind of helped us give more clarity to it all. Let's see, and then special thanks to Edwin Kirkpatrick. He actually came here to talk with us, kind of give us what he did. So down in this lower section, I didn't put it on, is the Kentucky Wildlife Reserve. Their deeds, yeah, their deeds, a lot of them when we were platting them were way down here, not even touching our place. We were only able to find this deed and this deed that actually touched this place. We weren't able to find this, but I believe resolved to say it's to Adair. Yeah, so this is the mess. Then you take that and clean it up for the final product.
So once we get the graphical abstract and boundary research done, it's time to actually get out in the field. We need to get control out there. We need to find where these points actually are on the map. So first off, we started by figuring out where we could actually find some elevation control. If we're going to do a topographic survey, we're going to need elevations. We had found 2 control monuments that were located at the Boone County courthouse. From there, we were able to set our baseline information, and then we placed control around the site for our boundary as well as our topo. These points were set to maximize both the sites of the boundary and getting good sight lines for our actual topo. And then we established the elevation using some segmented level loops, and we also checked that with GIS. Now, some of you may not know what a level loop is, so I'm going to try to explain the best I can. Let's say this is our surface of land. We know what is right here, and we want to find out our control elevation, which is like right here. That's a really steep slope. That's pretty close. There were some parts on our level that might have been that steep, but for the sake of this diagram, we'll make it a little bit easier. Let's see. So what we'll do is we'll set a building level, which is an instrument that maintains its level through this way. We can sight it through both sides. We have a rod, which gives us a height, and we can know the distance, or I should say the elevation, from here to the building height. And then we can set like a turning point. Oh, it's still really.
It's all right, just go with it.
All right.
We will be able to challenge it.
Okay, so it's going to be like a really small, like a little rod here. So we know the height from here and here, and then we need to, now we know the elevation at this point because we know this elevation, which is added to that and then subtracted from this. Then we move the level here. We move the rod up to a different height because we know the elevation here. We can take the elevation at this new height, add this, and then subtract it again to get this new spot for our next turning point. until we can find the height at the elevation point that we want to know. Hope that explains it, and I'm a great artist, as you can tell.
Basically, all that's doing is transferring elevation from a known location and point elevation to our ground control. This is the county benchmark that we happen to reference. It's about, what, a mile?
7/10 of a mile.
Yeah, 7/10 of a mile down the road to the, what would be west, so.
So the equipment that was used for the project was the, is it me? Setting control, GPS, we used this total station right here, this total station. With these, we used up for topos also, and I just had experience when I was out on my, I don't know how big. The person didn't know, out on the field, the person didn't know that we had to do a topo, and we was getting shots, and when we was getting shots on the ground, we was at a bank. It was a bank teller right there, and the lady got mad and said we was taking pictures of her ATM card or whatnot, and so she went to the point where she went into the bank and I guess she was talking about, because then she came out and just stood on this, looked across the street. That's that story, but that's what we use for the find our control points. And then the level loop, I don't have no picture of level loop, but that's just a stand. We look through the scope and take a ride and get the elevations for each height. You go to the next page. And then AutoCAD and Dribble, you just take all the information that we collect, dump into the Trimble, and it comes back with results, and you get numbers and figure that stuff out. It's complicated, but we did it. We got it done. Thank you.
All right. So after we hear from everybody, like all of our level loops, we got all of our control, we got our GPS points tied down with Trimble. We used R8 receivers, and got our, brought our elevation up to our base station. We ran our traverses, which closed really well. That information's back there. We had started our reconnaissance on the site. Reconnaissance means we go around, we find everything that's there. On this side, it was really difficult because, for one, the deeds were really vague. We did have a couple surveys that helped us out a lot. Mr. Fitzpatrick's survey, if we didn't have that, I don't know, we'd have made a lot of guesses, put it that way. But first of all, we knew starting out we had fences, we had center line of roads, we had center line of creeks, which in surveying, sometimes those might be all you get. So, but we knew we had those. That was before we knew we had Mr. Fitzpatrick's survey. And then we knew we had a survey that was performed by a gentleman named Knoll, which was the 3-point.
Let's see, right here, this one?
Yeah, which is this track here. He had surveyed this track, I think back in the 70s, if I could read the survey correctly.
Yep, 73.
Yeah, so we had that survey. Once we got Fitzpatrick's survey, or Kirkpatrick's survey, we really were ready to go. Kirkpatrick's survey, was invaluable, really. Like the first day we went out, we found a couple of his pins and were able to, I call it like rotating our site to the couple pins we found before we did some final reconnaissance. And once we found those pins, got them located, and got his survey rotated in correctly, we were hitting his pins that we found we were hitting the cap when we staked them out, which was pretty awesome.
It's a great survey.
Really good. The RISPEC deed, go back to it's on the east side of the creek. which would be this property here. It was a good description. It called for monuments, it called for iron pins, trees. We actually found the 24-inch walnut that was called for here in his pin, whoever surveyed it. I don't know if it actually said who surveyed that or not, but it was a good description. It called for an iron pin, which we found there. So that helped us out quite a bit down at the creek. Yeah, and once we got all the reconnaissance done, pins found, and located, everything else was, kind of fit right in. We had a few decisions to make after all that in the office to get some resolutions done. The creek area was a tricky spot because for one, this 7-acre tract, it called for the center line of the creek with the meanders. And Kirkpatrick actually held the top of bank on his plat on that side. I'm not sure exactly why he did that, unless he just didn't want to get into the creek. But in this area, like I said, we had the 24-inch walnut and the pin from this, and we had Kirkpatrick's pins on both sides. Our decision was to make, to match the east side of the creek. The tree and the pin here checked really well. I might be talking over some people's heads, but I think a lot of people understand what I'm saying.
Oh, sorry.
If we turn this angle from the rice back deed, we were actually hitting Kirkpatrick's pin that he set there. So that was pretty good. That made that decision rather easy. So, instead of holding Kirkpatrick's east bank or west bank, we pushed it over to that rice back deed. Go back to the survey. This corner was missing. We held Kirkpatrick's survey to put that back in. There was a post that's called for on both this old survey and Kirkpatrick's, which hit really well with Kirkpatrick's measurements. And so we held it. And we found Kirkpatrick's pin he set there. That's one that, it was like the week before we were looking for it, me and Gunner and Levi, we couldn't find it. And once we got his survey tied down good, we staked it out and we put our pole right on the cap. It was pretty neat. I was really impressed, actually. You don't find that very often. So we had, this established, that established, this survey. We just pushed it over the distances to establish those two corners, which hit pretty much in an old fence here, and this followed pretty much an old fence. This corner is in a washout down behind the church. There's a big gully. It was missing. So we're going to reestablish that corner using Kirkpatrick's survey. And then this line here as well, we used Kirkpatrick's angles to come out. This, he had a pin here, it was missing. I think they did some ditch work and tore it out. We replaced that. And then one other thing was Kirkpatrick, he had held the right-of-way for his boundary, and we kind of agreed that the 2 1/4 acre tract here called for with the road, so we pushed it out to the center line. And then same way here, we held the center line of the old Gum Branch Road as well. So it came together pretty well, I think, thanks to Mr. Kirkpatrick. He saved us a lot of time, I think, because we didn't know we had his survey until 10th week, maybe. I don't even know. I think the planning commission guy found it in one of the files. Which when we found it, it was relieving.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, it's just normal survey where we create the legal description from the survey that we resolved, which copies of the legal descriptions back here if you want to read through them. This is basically, in Kentucky, it's a meets and bounds surveying system, at least in this area, which where we survey in Highland County, we're in what they call the Virginia Military District. And it's really the only one of the areas in Ohio that is meets and bounds. And that's where I worked in, so I'm pretty used to it. And so it was, they didn't use bearings and distances and monumentation. Like when you read a deed that says north 200 feet to a crow's nest and an oak tree on the east bank, that's meets and bounds. So, there were probably some deeds that called that around us. So, and that's basically the story of resolving the boundary.
So going off the boundary, as Joseph stated before with this perfect presentation, when we got that known elevation and location to our established control points, kind of the next big step that as surveyors we can produce is a topographic survey map. Essentially what that is locating any utilities, like for instance they have a rock wall out front, we located that, building corners, all that kind of stuff, and then overall from those points it gives you a known elevation location for each shot that we took, and from there you create contours, which is essentially a line of elevation that flows through the project. So if basically what that tells you, if any sort of water were to hit that area, where is that water going to flow to? So with gathering those points though, we set up the Trimble Total Station S5. That just includes the tripod that it's sitting on, the instrument itself. We have a prism, which if I go back to this, it kind of gives a better clue, but it's got a prism that is can be active, semi-active, and essentially what it's doing is shooting a laser to that prism and back, and that's how we're collecting these points from angles and distances. So like I said, it basically paints a pretty picture like this that shows all the locations of the building, the edge of pavement, just kind of like I said, where's that water going to flow to if it was to rain very hard, you know. Where the contour lines, these dashed lines right in here are, essentially the closer together that they are, the steeper the area is. So there could be a change in elevation greater, where if you look up closer to the parking lot, it's much more spaced out because it's a lot flatter. So it kind of paints a pretty picture, and if you were to ever design anything for the site, you would use those contours to figure out where you'd want to run things. But for our purpose, we're just painting a pretty picture and showing kind of how that elevation changes throughout the site. So.
So moving on to the cemetery, we went out there and read what headstones we could still read. Yeah, we found a surprising amount of names, dates, the ages, for probably over half the cemetery. You know, still was legible in the headstones and everything. And for the rest of them, we used ground penetrating radar to try and find unmarked graves and just the overall extent of the cemetery, because it wasn't terribly well known where it went. I had a gentleman from ESP Associates come and do that. Came up from North Carolina actually to help us on this. So ground penetrating radar, it's basically sending a wave down into the ground, and if it hits something, you'll see a little parabola, a blip here, and saying basically there's something more dense than the soil around it. And, well, the inverse of it, if there was like a void or a hole there, you'd see the parabola going the other way. Now, we did have one issue here, that there's got like clay soil, so the radar in certain areas would only go to around like 3 foot deep, which isn't quite deep enough in a cemetery, where hopefully they're 6 foot deep. Oh, and we used go to the next slide here, show them that. So here's what the unit looked like. And this was called a 2D unit. So it had one receiver on it, and it would just send that down and come right back up. The area, you know, as wide as it is, that's all it's looking at. So everywhere you want to see, you got to drive it over. So what he would do is we'd start at the end of a line of headstones or something, and keep driving along until you see one of these parabolas, the little blip there. So you know from here to here, there's something. Then he'd come perpendicular to it, and same way, you'd find the length of whatever it was. We did find quite a few unmarked ones, something like 10 of them, I think, and areas that didn't have a headstone or anything around it. So I think it'll be nice for in the future, you know, there's something here, or basically how to expand the cemetery or something like that. But it was a very interesting process.
So with that, we located each headstone and gave it a point number on our plat. And that point number corresponds to a image. We have an image in a Excel file that we put the names that we could read off and the dates we could read off of the birth and the death and their age. But yeah, we got about half of them, I think, is what it comes out to be.
Yeah, and they're all corresponding to the point numbers on this sheet.
Yes.
So you can go out there and be like, point number, you know, whatever, this is where they are. So.
I just want to point out something. These little square boxes are where the gentleman from ESP had located those unmarked graves. So you can see there's a few of them in here, just where there weren't headstones, but there was something that we found underneath the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it up here.
I don't know why it's doing that. It's weird. There's a few more up to the north. It looks like 2 or 3 of them have got cut off for whatever reason.
Yeah, it wasn't like consistent where we found them either. So maybe just like a headstone had fallen over and they set it up on another headstone. So you got a couple random ones in there.
So it's the drone mapping.
So for the drone mapping, we had a guy from Rezo who actually, he works for himself at Advanced Drone Solutions. His name is Dave Wingate. He flew the site, he had it all set up before he even got to the site. And his drone does photogrammetry and LiDAR. So photogrammetry pretty much gave us that aerial photo of the whole site. And then the LiDAR gave us all the contour information on the site, which right here is that 3D image of the whole surface. And we also have all the data back there on plats. And pretty much setting it up, he just had to bring it out, and it had RTK on it, so we didn't really have to set any ground control points or anything like that. And it ended up working out really well with everything we had, with our data matched up almost dead on. So.
Touching on that a little bit more, what photogrammetry is basically stitching together photos to create an orthomosaic of the surface, which you can kind of see here. It's similar to what it looks like, but with LiDAR, it's essentially taking a laser pulse and sending it and shooting hundreds of thousands of points per second, and you can get up to hundreds of thousands of points collected in a square meter, so it's really accurate for what it is. You get much better results, of course, on pavement because it's flat and easy, but that's where we did our topo in the woods was a little bit more accurate because you have the tree cover above you, so it's kind of hard to see down to it. What he explained was if you can see the sky from where you're at, I can get a laser pulse there. But granted, with leaves and on the ground and tree limbs, it's not as accurate in the woods as we could be, just from what we experienced on site. So as you can see, the map that he was able to produce is a lot, there's a lot more data to it, to say the least. So, but it's really cool equipment and looks to be a big part of the future of surveying. So I'm sure there's lots of companies will come out in the future with similar things, and it'll be a big advancement for our field, so. News article?
So as part of the class requirement, but not something that the church was wanting necessarily, is that we produce a news article to be put in the local paper. And so with that, we tried to focus on all the different people that kind of participated in putting this whole thing together. And so we had, there we've got a cap of Kirkpatrick's there that they had found, and so he was very instrumental with his survey, and then we had the drone and the GPR, and so those guys had come out and really help look for the different things with the unmarked graves, and then kind of help with the data of comparing, just kind of more, I guess, for us to see that technology and how it compares with the traditional topo. And so in the news article, mentioned all the help that we've gotten from the community members, and Lisa's really been rounding everybody up and trying to get this. I mean, this is her baby. So we had a lot of fun with this project. And so, with the article, I just wanted to kind of express that, that this would be a good community outreach thing to kind of round up all of the rest of kind of the church members and people that may not be church members here anymore, but their families are buried here, that maybe they can get involved as well and really come together and try to nail down everything that the church wants to find out about itself. And so I have there with the many hands make light work, and so together get this full project flushed out. And plus we'll have other classes of ours come and do more throughout. We only did one little section of the grave sites, so the other classes are scheduled to do the other sections. And hopefully they can find more information on the boundary and the neighbors and all that. So we've done a lot of digging, but there's a lot more to do.
Magazine article?
Along the same line of a news article, just sort of as a class requirement, we're going to actually be hopefully posting a magazine article, which is more like a technical document for people more inclined to know what surveying is and what is actually going on in terms of like the technical work, more like along the lines of the drawing work, the surveying work. We plan to submit those hopefully to American Surveyor and XYHT.
Takeaways.
Was this one me?
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. We were here to collect data and make determinations as to the resolution of the boundary, and we've done that. We looked into the history of the church. We utilized the community, and without that information, without Kirkpatrick's survey, never would have been able to make this determination that we have so easily. We used a lot of different techniques. We ran level loops, we used total stations, GPS, drone flights, ground penetrating radar, all to locate these grave sites, determine the boundary, and provide as accurate information as we possibly can. And yeah, the courthouse records helped us to identify the adjoiners, who owns what, and provide that information to the church.
One of the cool things about this project itself, being a capstone project, is all of us in the field or in the office are usually doing one or two things, but with this project we could really pull all the surveying techniques and different things that surveyors do together in one unique project. So like we were talking about the drone survey, that's something that I've never seen. I think most of the people here have never really seen that in person, so it was cool to take our time and go through all the processes thoroughly and investigate, you know, what is Big Bone Church and what are their property adjoiners and all that kind of thing. So we got to see all that come together, and that's a really cool experience. Special thank you to Lisa. We definitely appreciate your help and could not have got as far as we could without you and the help of Big Bone in general. So
And your cornbread.
yeah, food was delicious. With that, if you guys have any questions, anything you want to ask us, or you know, get more information on, I'm sure one of us could answer those questions. So we appreciate all your time, and like I said,
Two
Go for
things. Where is that? You know?
This
Yes.
picture?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
in front of the church. That's
Right on
a
the
survey
wall.
marker that's actually right next to the parking lot.
Really?
Yeah, there's a little green space
Okay.
by the
Probably mowed
stone
it,
wall.
Yeah.
100,000
Took a
times.
couple of weeks to find it.
Yeah, my God.
Jim tripped over it.
USGS monument,
Uh-huh.
and it's actually not even listed on the
Yeah, it's-
updated site. think
Because
it's-
that's 1929.
Yeah.
The other ones are the new ones, and we use the new ones, so this is, it's an old survey manual.
It's no longer updated with NGS.
Yeah, I'm just interested in, also, which you don't know where it is, but it is a point of interest, that the 10 acres that was originally here, or maybe at some point, and then,
Oh, I know where the 10 acres.
Do you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it was the half acre that didn't have any description as to where it was. So the 10 acres is if you're going up the road, and that bend, it's further,
Okay.
you can't see it.
Okay,
It's,
all right.
it's up here.
Yeah, okay.
Where the
I
road
know where it is
bends.
now. All right, I know
it's
where
in
it is.
that.
I was thinking it was like right, catch right here, but it was,
No.
I know where you're talking about now, yeah.
It's on the other side of Aylor.
It's Jackson property now, yeah.
It's probably where Google Maps wanted to take me to.
Yeah.
That might be it.
Well, I'm really glad you got to meet Edwin Kirkpatrick.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Yes, he is.
I liked him.
He's a meticulous man.
Did he work with you? I mean, did he walk around?
Oh, yeah.
Did he work
So,
you out?
He
Yeah.
didn't really walk on the
Now you have
boundary,
a
but he
jump
did.
to go to after he met with us.
He
Yeah.
should feel good. He could wear all of you out and then keep going.
He was just happy we ran a traverse, a closed traverse around the site.
Yeah.
'Cause
He's old school.
Yeah, he's definitely old school. I don't even think he owns a GPS unit.
No, he doesn't. He won't.
Yeah.
That would be him.
Hey,
His
only-
stuff was accurate.
Only
Yeah.
recently, I think, that he has even gotten a robot. He's done all this stuff for years by himself with a.
That's what he was saying.
Yeah, but he can do it because he's got that kind of energy.
Yeah.
He's
Super
accurate.
surveyor.
Yeah, the stuff was accurate, at least in 91 it was.
Still
That's
is.
what I strive to be.
That's what we all wanted to be.
Right.
91 and still surveying, is that?
So.
So did you find any extra headstones?
I think we did find a few that were kind of buried, kind of not. There are a few markers of indicators, but this, let's see, actually I think it's
Was it that one?
this one in particular, this area where this line is drawn. That is one that was definitely buried and bigger than the others, so we're all kind of interested to see what would be
I
there.
think it was like a vault or something,
Right.
but yeah, it definitely looked a little different.
And then with the headstones themselves, they, I guess as they've fallen over, the grounds crew maybe, I guess, kind of gathered them up and set them next to the ones that are still standing. So there's a lot of headstones out there that aren't where they belong. And so, like, one spot will have 4 or 5 headstones just kind of piled.
They were just broken headstones that got gathered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some of them, and then there was one, I think, no, that wasn't it. But there's a couple out there where they've even pulled up where they put the corner markers, like the plot corners, and some of those have been set next to other headstones, and so they're just not where they originally had been.
Yeah, there was one with corner markers, but there wasn't a headstone in that area, so.
Wow.
So we'll have to have your unknown
grave site, like Arlington.
I like
So we painted the ones we found last week.
Yes.
So as long as I didn't get mowed over or anything, they should be there still.
And the one section where there wasn't any headstones, not sure how we determined, but it was the slave section, and so that's why it's unmarked.
What makes you think that?
I forget who found that evidence.
It's been told down through the years, by folks that have been here a long time, has since gone, that corner right over there, we talked about it, didn't we? Is where supposedly,
And that's where he got the most information, was down
Aren't there,
Up in this corner.
Okay, so there was a distance between that grave site and the bigger grave site?
It just kind of stuck up in there.
Yeah, it's like a little bit off into the corner.
Okay.
But
Yeah, in the pictures in the back.
in the past, I've heard of pauper graves being unmarked graves as well.
We've had some discussion about, and not thorough discussion, but we've kind of knocked it around a little bit after this identification was made, that maybe we can fence that area out and mark that as a designated area for either enslaved people or that kind of thing, so that it will remain at rest.
It's one thing you said about the GPR too, it's not a guarantee that there's something there, it's just a potential probability that something's there, because you'd have to dig actually to find it, for sure.
right, and the depth was kind of an estimate too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think we'll take the word of the GP. We don't want, we never
Right.
do.
yeah. You can see where we mow. Will there be, things that we can see where the actual boundaries are? I mean, this property here, nobody knows exactly. There's so many different stories about it. Right down below the church on this side. And then as it cuts out this way, I see some orange tape right here in this sort of corner by that light pole. And how do we know where our property actually is and the other property is? Where the boundaries are?
Well, because we're just doing this as a class, we aren't setting those actual corners. Now, when it's all said and done, that's why Tom's here, that he's gonna
They don't have
eventually-
licenses and they can't set pins yet.
I got you.
Yeah.
But I
They can set yours.
And I think for future classes, as we continue to do this, we might wrap that up and we can. We know where they are.
Do you?
At least I think that side's very solid. There's some stuff over here that's a little sketchy.
When you say over here, you talking about that side?
The adjoiners, right? The adjoiners over there is what's missing.
To the south or
The
the,
triangle piece.
Am I turned around?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes.
oh,
I
this,
think this is our big area of question, which is what
Yes.
you were referring to
Yeah.
as well. And that's where that swale is that we were trying to look for, but there's nothing there.
What's a swale? Is that kind of what?
It's basically where the water flows down through. It's a
It's a
small
gully creek.
creek, you know.
Oh,
If you have a drum,
I-
yeah, there you go. There you
so
go.
I think the church's boundary is kind of set, it's just that we don't know who owns that. And if there's a lot of people that think they own it, if they want to produce those documents, that would be wonderful.
Well, the story on that, Mr. Kirkpatrick found somebody in 1991 who's an heir,
Yes.
an ancient heir, and she, what's?
Betty Raridan. Betty Raridan, and she's in Florida. And when Edwin contacted her in '91, she wrote back and said, "I'm interested to know more. Where is that?" And so she's unaware. She's 91 years old now. So we're,
Is there a chance we could assist them in getting them to quit claim deed prepared with the local attorney, like,
Right, if the
that's a
church wants
member
the
of,
property.
we have a local attorney, registered surveyor, local attorney in our North Kentucky chapter, that we may be able to come up with at least some correspondence to see if they'd be willing to sign a quit claim deed, that if they're not trying to possess it or claim it, at least get them off the list.
Clear that part up.
Maybe.
that'd be wonderful. We'd like that. I'm saying that with absolutely no authority to say it would. I think we would like that.
There would need to be some more boundary work done to establish the.
Yeah, I mean, in the future, a little bit more work there, you might be able to,
Right. you know, we encounter this all the time, and, you know, big boundaries where there's little slivers of land that either there's a gap in our surveys, and we're trying to get people who might have claim to it to sign off or release their claim, eliminating, you know, some of those folks.
And my understanding that this class, however, though you can't set a stake, you know where they should go.
Yes, sir.
So I could talk to somebody to find out if a certain tree's on our property, or a squirrel nest, or anything like that.
I don't know, should we put at least the wood markers so they can get a rough?
I would
I don't
truly,
know.
I would truly appreciate that.
So we had flagged up all the monuments that we found out there. So there should be orange ribbon tied to a tree and the monument that's in the ground.
And so I'm to understand that the job's not complete, there'll be other classes of Buckeyes and Hoosiers coming in.
You just have to encourage more people from Kentucky.
I got you.
To stake on the ground definitively where the boundary is in any manner.
Yes, sir.
Is saying that we've done a boundary here and we haven't finished it, so without finishing it, the licensure board would say, well, you haven't completed minimum standards.
That's his official call, because those are officialness.
Well, let me ask you this, would it get the Buckeyes and Hoosiers in trouble if we drove a stake?
Oh, they can do it, yeah, we don't mind doing it.
That's what my point is. As long as I don't get in trouble.
Well, I was gonna say that a lot of people think that stake is going to be the marker. You gotta know where to put it, and you gotta have a license to put it there, but, so I think we better be careful.
Yeah, I don't want you to drive a stake and get anybody in trouble, but I would like to know, here's a boundary. Because I've been here all these years and I don't know.
Yeah, I can't, I didn't see any DWG files, but if I get a DWG file, send that to me, and I can walk it with you.
I appreciate it.
And then he can mark it.
Can we get a copy of the presentation and links?
Absolutely.
Maybe something on the website?
We do have, we were gonna, whenever this is finished up, there are a bunch of plan sheets back there that's enlarged. You can kind of see what we're talking about, and feel free to ask us questions about that. But yeah, we can absolutely send out this presentation and all of our data that's associated with it, so.
Yeah, I didn't know y'all had a bachelor's program at Cincinnati State. That's
new.
That's cool. That's good.
This your first class, or was last winter?
Fall of 20, so this is the second class.
Okay.
So it's a 3-year degree or program or?
4-year.
4-year?
Designed to be 4-year.
Yeah. I'd like to make an
I've only been
observation.
here 4.
You know, I've been a licensed surveyor for 20 years in North Kentucky, practicing in different firms. And of course, Tom has too. And we both are members of the local survey chapter. And I feel like this project was a superb choice for a capstone project. I commend your team's efforts there. You got to use a lot of techniques that we still use every day. I mean, everything you've done there, we're doing it on a daily basis, the way you're collecting your data and the equipment you're using, the software you're using, you know, some of the newer techniques you've got to witness is exciting in our industry. We're using that on certain projects as well. So everything you did on this project is a lot of what we do. And, you know, you kind of pull all that different techniques together to make your best fit of where those properties are. And I think that's fun. I enjoy it. And we're all, we talk about it in our group all the time. This is the fun stuff about surveying. Being able to pull somebody's old plat you find and stumble across that is a eureka moment for you, and you get to go out there and find those pins. I think that's exciting when you can find someone else's survey and apply it to what you're doing and have some proof of history there. As I was driving here today, I was going through my head what I was going to talk about, just thinking about, you know, being a surveyor for the last 30 years. Witnessing newer kids coming in, finding those stones that are called for in an 1890 description, you know, almost gets me more excited than anything when you walk out there and dig 2 feet and find it. You know, the story I had was, you know, we had a new kid just out of high school. We were just going to pulled a rod for us, and we dig down, find the stone. Me and the other guys worked with me for 25 years. We're excited. We're taking pictures of it.
That's what we're doing in our chapter, we share.
We're taking a picture of a rock.
Here's a stone I found.
And he's standing off to the side going like this. How can you not get excited about this? You know, you're putting together puzzles.
And your wife says, that's a rock.
Yeah. You know, driving
Glazed
down-
with a.
walking down the sidewalk in Gatlinburg and you see a magnail or a cross notch in the sidewalk, you're like, hey, there's a survey miner. Who cares? But that's what we love to do. You know, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah,
I hope these guys get as excited about it as I do. I think they do. But, you know, 30 years doing it, and I still get excited to find that pin when I put my pole down and hit the cat.
Yes.
Like we did. It's amazing.
Well, I know surveying is, there's always error in your
Oh, yeah,
surveys.
definitely.
And so as you go forward, you think you're getting better and better accuracy and better technology, but, you know, no matter what, you always have error and you always have an opinion. And so we have heated discussions all the time about, you know, we're fighting over a half inch or a quarter inch.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they stuck it 10 feet away or 25 feet away. So sometimes we got a little false accuracy. We're chasing quarter inches and we're losing sleep staring at the ceiling worried about that quarter inch.
Yeah.
So.
I think y'all the Capstone Project is great because you'll be doing this very thing, getting dressed up in your Sunday best and putting forth a presentation for planning commissions for many years to come. Just like, it's like the whole project is very well put together, including the culmination of it here. It's all, you'll do every bit of it in your careers. Congratulations, Carol, for putting such a fantastic project together.
If I could also to introduce myself, I'm Doug Woodruff. I've talked to everybody, I think, on your team on the phone. I'm your co-op coordinator. Unfortunately, y'all have jobs I wasn't able to help you find those jobs. But I would like to encourage the members of the church that when you share these results with your members, those who have kids that are wondering about what to do, tell them about how our school educates our people to become very gainfully employed, producing parts of communities. So we've got a brand new bachelor's degree, and we're looking for students. And as a co-op coordinator, I'm always looking for students because I'm contacted daily by people like Jim in the background and Tom here who want to hire our students for full-time employment.
Do you have a card?
I do in my car up in
Yeah, because I don't have a card. I work for the EPA
okay.
up in DC.
You gotta watch him.
Research, R&D, not regulators.
So I also work with 5 programs at Cincinnati State. I work with the land surveying program, with civil engineering, environmental engineering technology, chemical technologies, and electromechanical. So almost, and then as you're talking about your members of the church, anybody who employs anybody, we have 100 degrees and certificates. We only have 2 bachelor's degrees, and land surveying is one of the first 2. Culinary is the other one. But accounting.
Yeah, our daughter went through a program in co-op with, guys in horticulture and nursery and all that kind of thing. It was, co-op was wonderful.
So,
Let me
I want
ask
to
you-
do a show here. I just wanted to do.
Before I slip out, have you ever done a cemetery before?
We have.
We laid out plots in a cemetery one time, because in Ohio, it's required that a surveyor has to lay that out.
I don't know about you guys, but a cemetery reminds me, every one of us got an appointment with death. And what this
True.
church is all about is helping people understand where they're gonna spend eternity. So, we're glad that you came out. We're glad that you help us find some graves, because we wanna be respectful. But we also care about where you guys are gonna spend eternity. So just remember that. Jesus took care of that debt for us. Do business with him. In 34 years, I've had to bury lots of people. So thanks for that. Even Buckeyes and Hoosiers. We can help you, let us know.
I'll get back with you on that.
Okay. You and I gonna have possum one day, brother. I promise you.
Hopefully that's forever, right?
Carol, I want to thank you. Thank you and Jim so much, as well as your entire team. And equal thanks to you, Tom, for connecting us. And I should first start with thanks for putting up with my repeated emails to you over the years to bring us to this point today. Thank you so much. And Carol and Jim, thank you. And what a pleasure it's been to work with each one of you. Just a pleasure. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for us? Like I said, there's all of our maps back there. We can take a look at those and feel free to ask what's what. So.
But did you guys, Matt said it about, you took data on most of the sites of the graves, correct? So we have
Yes.
that
Yeah.
information.
There's an Excel spreadsheet on the flash drive here that we're gonna give you guys. There's also a couple copies back there on the table.
Okay, thank you.
There's also, all the pictures we took of the headstones are also on the flash drive. So you can look through those. And
Shane, did we put coordinates on that in the spreadsheet? I don't know. like,
No, I
did
didn't
they
put
do that?
coordinates in
I just
there.
wondered if that might be something.
The point number's on there, so you can
The
look at
point
the
number
other
is,
drawing.
That may not help.
correspond to the,
If they get it into their system, I don't know if they use lat long. I don't know, I mean, that might
Yeah.
be something, I don't know.
the coordinates have,
That would go into that, if they use that
Okay.
mapping system or whatever they're talking about doing. I don't know, just something.
yeah.
Well, I think the different websites that do, like, 'cause my son does one of them where he goes with his phone, and you can have the geolocation turned on your phone, and so when he takes the picture, it saves that coordinate with the picture, and then he uploads it. The site he uses has an app, and it uploads it to the site, and so it's tagged, and so people using the site can get that tag and go locate it wherever in the country.
But what I'm getting at is.
But it's for them,
us,
I don't
yeah.
know what they're using.
Well, we could harvest the coordinates within
Yeah.
a state plan and just dump them in that spreadsheet for each point really easily. If that's just,
Cause I think these use the lat long.
they probably do, but that can be converted if you
Yeah.
state plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy conversion.
We're not using an internet resource just yet. We're coming to that. We're just not there just yet. We're coming. It's pretty soon.
Yeah, regardless of all that, all the data that we've collected, we'll give all of you guys so that you guys can access that however you please. And I'm sure if you reach out with more questions, we'd probably be able to help you with that, so.
One other question, did you guys come up with a number of graves? And I was
I think
curious.
there's like 383 or something.
In just that one
Yeah,
little
well,
area?
some of those graves actually have doubles,
Okay.
multiples in them, so I don't know how many.
So total headstones.
Yeah, so total headstones is 380. Three.
Yeah, some had three of them.
Yeah.
3 names on one headstone, so.
I was gonna say, there's families that I know out there that was burned, and all of them, yeah.
We just went condo early.
All right, well, thank you guys. You did a fantastic job. We appreciate your work.
I wanted to thank Carol and Jim too.
Yeah, thank you guys.
You guys
Thank you.
kept us on track most of the times.
Great.
We all out here in some cold days too.
Now, I believe there are some light refreshments upstairs for us in the gym. I saw the ladies, Kathy and Jeannie are upstairs, and they're fixing us a little bite to